All set? Okay, so moving on to our next stop, we have a speaker all the way from Korea, right? So our next speaker is also known as Winter, is an offense security researcher at NSHC Incorporated. She's a member of the Pawn to Own Automotive 2025 CIS team, Collision. She specializes in embedded systems, including IoT, OT, and automotive security. So let's give a round of applause to our next speaker, Yong Yuso.
Thank you. Hello, I will presenting the security crack at the summit, Rethinking OTA. Thank you for attending this presentation. Before diving into today's topic, I would like to introduce the co-researcher who contribute to this work. Next, I will explain why we initiate this research and why we chose this particular device as our starting point. We will examine the attack surface of the target device and share the insights we gained through our analysis. Following that, we will focus on the OTA process, how it operates, the vulnerabilities we discovered along the way, and finally, we will conclude by sharing the key finding of our research. Let's begin introducing the presenter of today's topic. I am Eun and my co-worker are Haeun-moon and Hyun-Sang-yoon. We were research at NSHC Red Alert Lab, specializing in finding vulnerability of IoT device and ICS environment. Now, source of belief overview of our analyst research. I would like to share insight into the targeted device and its potential attack surface. We encountered the target device while preparing for Pontoon Automotive competition held in January. The Pontoon Automotive competition provides several attack categories. For this research, we choose a target from the infotainment category, which included products from 4 vendors. Among these, we selected an IVI device as our target. We believe that IVI category would be easier to set up for vulnerability research compared to other categories, such as product acquisition or premier access. As I mentioned earlier, the 2025 IVI category included 4 vendors. Pontoon Automotive first launched in 2024, and the selected vendors that year were larger, the same as this year. In this year, last year competition, there are many attempts across all targets. Today, we will focus on specifically on Alpine. Now, let me explain some key features of the target device. The vendor provides firmware file for updates on their website. The target device firmware is particularly interesting. The firmware download page indicates that a single firmware version is used across the multiple models. Often examining the other models that sharing the same firmware. We observed that the same firmware was shared across multiple models, which appeared to differ mainly by the screen size. The devices targeted in 2024 and 2025 Pontoon competition used the same firmware. In 2024, the vendor assessed the vulnerability using Tara methodology based on the ISO SAE 20444. These vulnerabilities were classified as a shared risk, and the vendor chose not to patch them. As a result, we'll receive the device with the same known vulnerabilities. The IVI device also runs a set of notable services. One particular interesting service found under internal service is a DLT daemon. DLT stands for Dynamic Log and Trace, a standardized protocol used for logging and tracing dynamic messages in automotive systems. Dynamic log, particularly those provided via the DLT system, offers valuable insight into the runtime behavior during our analysis. In this section, I will outline the attack surface identifying during our analysis. Okay. These attack surfaces are not exclusive to Alpine device, but are common vector across the most IVI systems. Wireless interface include Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, while physical access is provided through the USB Type-A port, some supporting the data transfer. Share access also possible via open source port or physical debugging interface. The system supports update USB and OTA, both of which present critical attack vector due to their potential for widespread impact. Additional risks include file passing through USB media and interaction with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which may also be exploited under certain conditions. Now, I will share some useful insight for our analysis process. After disassembling the device, we found that it consisted of two separate boards. One of the boards is we identified two key components. One was a chip typically used tablet chip processor in aftermarket IVI systems, and the other one was an eMMC chip. This eMMC chip used for storing firmware and user data was manufactured by SK Hynix. We referred to relevant data sets for these chips and successfully extracted the firmware via chip-off technique. The target device has two USB ports, one officially designated for data and the other one for charging only. The device supports multimedia playback from external USB storage, and it's compatible with FAT16, FAT32, and EXFAT file system, as well as a wide range of audio and video formats. The target device supports two Wi-Fi modes. The first is Internet mode, which allows the general Internet access. So while the CarPlay and Android Auto are not operation in this mode, user can scan for Wi-Fi networks and connect by entering a password through standard Wi-Fi UI. This mode is presumed to be mainly used for firmware updates. And the second is the phone link mode, which used when connecting to CarPlay or Android Auto wirelessly. In this mode, the IVI acts as an access point. Once enabled, the IVI screen displayed the Wi-Fi password under FSK for phone link, allowing mobile phones to connect. And the device supports Bluetooth and enables cellular profile with allowing for functions such as a phone call and connecting syncing and audio streaming. Our analysis focused on reliving content connect and call history using PBAP. In this process, because data is sent over L2CAP and transferred using OBEX, a simple request and response protocol. PBAP used the structure to exchange content, information between devices. We also performed purging using the breakout data. At first, we used AFL++, but since it's feedback-driven, it didn't produce many crash in our case. So we then switched to Radamsa, which was much more effective and generates a large number of crash. For structured format like breakout, truth like Radamsa, which mutates input while preserving for format, tends to work better. Through this purging, we were able to identify one-day vulnerabilities before the competition. And after the competition, we have been analyzing the crash further. And the device supports both USB and Wi-Fi connectivity, including multiple modes for user interaction and update. Through the update, both firmware update and car-by-car update can be performed. The car-by-car update are used to customize the image displayed on the IVI screen when the engine started. However, on current device, the car-by-car update features is disabled by default. But still, since the functionality exists within the firmware binary, it's possible to activate it and use it. The vendor provides OTA updates as two files, a main package and a file name collective sign info that. The main package nearby 1 GB in size is likely the file system, but is password protected and could not extract it with standard tools like binwork. The collective sign info.dat file contains multiple components, including an update signature and a host info file. The host info file is partially encrypted using AES 128. We identify the IV value in unencrypted section and retrieve the hard-coded AES 128 key from the update binary by dumping the file system. So by using the IV and key, we successfully decrypted the encrypted version of the host info file. This description will alleviate the password needed to unzip the main package file. Once unzipped, we were able to access multiple files, including a full file system. This gave us a deeper understanding of how files are handled and decrypted during the update process. Now, We will present our analysis of the OTA process and share the security vulnerability we discovered. The core model for our update process is update MGR. In this main function, it first set up logging and basic initialization. Then it creates 4 threads like that. And finally, it initializes IPC and RPC. IPC handles data exchanging between the process, while RPC allows one process to call another as if it were local. With this setup, update manager is ready to run update operation. Let us now take a closer look at how the OTA update process works. OTA update operates based on a message queue system. Until a specific event is received, the system repeatedly calls the AFW Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Coming back to topics, the repeater calls AFW get message function. As once the unfamiliar event is received, the OTA process begins. The first step is prepare the server request by collecting device information. The system reads the serial number from the serial info file and retrieves the product name, which is then used to build the OTA download URLs. Depending on the environment, for example, if xxdv.dat is founding in USB paths, the system may switch to developer mode URL. In this way, the request URL is dynamic chosen based on the configuration. When accessing the constructed URL, a warning message appeared your connection is private. This indicates that the SSL certificate is missing or invalid. In order to access the URL, a username and password is required. These account credentials are hard-coded in the source code, so the system rolls them directly and uses them to create basic authentication header. This basic header is then inserted into the HTTP request and sent to the server. Next, the HTTP request is executed. The system uses the libcurl library to send the GET request. During this process, it sets the target URL and included the authentication header. It also configured the parameter like request ranks and proxy timeout. Once the configuration is complete, a log message is printed to indicate that the system is ready to request. The system sends the request and handles the server response. The HTTP status code determines the next step in the process. If 200 OK response is received, the OTA process proceeds. The response included data in JSON format. This data is parsed using a function called JSON JSON tokener parse. The JSON payload contains information about the software version and the primary file URLs. It also indicated the number of files to be downloaded, the size of each, and their respective download links. The system compared the software version listed in the JSON with the current firmware version installed on the devices. If the new version is higher than the current one, the update process continues, but if not, the system displays a message, current version is up to date, and terminates the OTA process. If an update is needed, the system begins downloading the files listed in the signed URL section of the JSON. If the download is interrupted, the system uses the pre-configured range setting to resume from the point of failure. If continually monitors to the progress and checks whether all files have been downloaded. Once all files are downloaded, now starting validating the downloaded file. The verification is based on the following process. First, the system verifies the package info file and checks its signature. It then decrypted the host info file to obtain the request data and parsed that update package to confirm its integrity. Finally, it compared the firmware version in package with the current version. If the package is the same or older, the device shows a no higher version error and stop the updates. Since file integrity has been confirmed, installation is begin. The OTA installation process writes log indicating success or failure. Once the firmware installation is complete, the OTA thread terminates and the update process is finalized. Now we will introduce the key vulnerability we discovered in OTA process and how this can be exploited. We identify critical weakness in network communication setting and authentication mechanism of the OTA update flow. Let's take a closer look at the request process for version check and firmware downloaded. First, the system initializes call and configure HTTP headers. Next, it sets necessary options for call, includes the authentication credentials required for the server. Finally, it sends the request and handles the response. Call options are configured using the call is setup function. This function takes 3 parameters. The first is the call handle. The second is the option number to be set. And the third is the value to assign to that option. Among various call options configured in the update binary, we focused on these relative to SSL validation, as these had directly implications for security. The vulnerability arises from 2 options related to SSL certificates. If both options are to set to 0, the SSL certificate validation is entirely disabled. In fact, in the binary, we identify a part where both options can be explicit to set to 0. If this is done, the option OX40 disable all SSL certificates validation, and the OX51 disable verification of the server domain name against the certificate's common name or subject's alternative name. This allows the use of self-signed or forged certificates. And the software version specialized in the JSON file during the update process is also critical component. It is used both for version comparison and for determining the firmware under which the downloaded package file will be saved. Let us first focus on the version comparison. On the left side, we can see the low software version information extracted from the OTA sites, the JSON data. This data is processed by a function that consolidates it into a single version string shown on the right. The resulting consolidation version is then compared against the device's current version using the strncmp function to determine whether an update is necessary. Therefore, to exploit the version handler's logic, one must craft a version string that both matches the expected regular expression and satisfies the strncmp condition used for comparison. For instance, if manufactured version string is passed into the function, as shown on the left, the regular expression will parse into the format shown on the right. While this function is intended to generate a consolidation version string, we discovered that it can be abused to trigger a path travel vulnerability. By carefully crafting the version input, we can influence how the path is constructed during the update process and ultimately enabling personalized file access or modification. Next, the software version from the JSON file is used in the path where the update file is stored. Since the path is not hard-coded, manipulating the version string can affect the storage location, potentially enabling path travel or other unintended behavior. When a crafted software version string matches that effective regular expression, only the first OX30 bytes are used for version comparison. The rest is ignored for validation, but is still incorporated into the file path. There is no strict length check on the full version strings. As a result, an attacker can embed a path travel payload in the version field so that the first downloaded update file is saved to an arbitrary location with an attacker-controlled the file name, effectively bypassing intended storage controls. If the corrupted file path pointed to non-existent location, the system creates the prior and write the update package without issue. Overwriting an existing file was not straightforward. The file is opened with large file and read-write only, which causes write to append from the end rather than overwrite. Taking this behavior into account, we controlled the write operation by appending other payload beyond the original file size, thereby injecting the desired contents into the target files. Here is a brief overview of exploit scenario. First, user initiates an update request through the Alpine IVI system. During the update process, the device contains a packet opaque OTA server controlled by attacker. The attacker then serves a corrupted response, causing the device to download a malicious file. Due to the fast traverse vulnerability, this file is written to attacker's specialized location on the system. If the overwritten file is later executed, it results in a reverse shell connection to the attacker. We will now conclude the presentation with demonstration video showing the exploit in action. In this demo, we started by running the OTA server that we built. Then we triggered the update process by pressing the OTA update button on the device. Once the device connects to our server, we can verify the connection through the update request and response exchanging. At the point, the device begins downloading the update file, and the update process continues as usual. After that, the device reboots. Because in this demo, we will overwrite a boot time file with our attack payload. This attack takes advantage of the lack of proper validation during the update process, so we're trying to OTA update. Then, as a result, when the system reverse share is triggered, and once the connection is established, and we were able to obtain the root shell on the device. To summarize our research, focus on vulnerability found in Alpine IVI system, as well as the border attack surface common to IVI devices. We looked closely at how this system can be exploited, particularly through the OTA update process, and highlighted the specific vulnerability we discovered. For the future work, we were planning to further investigate OTA firmware update, especially as new changes seems to involve HSM related features on the update servers. We were also prepared to expand our research scope into the another IVI system and EV charger, including platform using by Tesla. I hope this presentation have provided some useful insight for you. Thank you for your time and attending just this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yansil. Awesome, yeah, awesome stuff from the Pon to On in, we're friends from Vic One, right? And okay, so sure there's still some announcement from Jamie. Otherwise, let's go. Let's move with our next speakers, and I'm gonna go set up.